What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SI Sooners Podcast, episode 110 on this wonderful Wednesday, February the 16th. John Hoover in Tulsa. Josh Callaway here with you in Oklahoma City. No Ryan this week. He's on vacation in the Big Apple is Ryan. So we'll catch up with him next week. It's just going to be me and Hoove this week. And, of course, the Groves Bros. We have them coming up at the end of the show. Great talk with them, kind of recap the last few games for them and the road trips, and the team continues to battle for a playoff spot, and also get to kind of talk about them, about their NFL allegiances and some of the other stuff from growing up. So it was a really cool conversation. We'll have that at the end of the show, Tanner and Jacob Groh. So Hoove, how you feeling, my man? Obviously, Super Bowl champ. Rams get it done. They win the Super Bowl on Sunday, obviously. Couple of Sooners get rings, Obo Okoronkwo and Bobby Evans. But the most important part is that John Hoover's team has won the Super Bowl.
For the first time since 1999. It has been a longer stretch for Rams fans than it has been for Oklahoma Sooners fans before this year. Think about that. So it's been a couple of losses here and there. Not pleasant when you have to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But I am world's biggest Cooper Cup fan, except for maybe the Groves Bros. They're also Cooper Cup fans, being from Eastern Washington. Big Matthew Stafford fan. Big Aaron Donald fan. Just kind of euphoric, man. We talked about it since 2016, since I basically left the newspaper business. I've been out on my own. Everybody who has worked with me at some point in the last 5 years, their team has gone on to win a world championship, whether it was radio or SI Sooners, whatever it is. You're next, Josh.
I hope
Your
so,
team
man.
has got to be next. It's like 6 people in a row who have worked with me watch their team. The Cubs, the Chicago Cubs won a World Series after Lauren Rue started working with me. So you got to believe, Josh, you got to believe that you're next.
Well, it pretty much has to be the New York Yankees because the Thunder are in full-on tank mode, and the Falcons are very far from contending. So,
yeah,
and we need a baseball season to even happen for that to happen. But happy for the Rams. Happy for the former Sooners, Obo and Bobby Evans, getting themselves some rings. Joe Mixon and P. Ryan gave it everything they had. Mixon threw a tutty. First former Sooner to throw a touchdown in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. A lot of OU fans got mad at me that I didn't count Troy Aikman as a true former Sooner. I don't feel like he counts. That's just kind of my feel. It's like you kind of, you only really get to count for one. You know, it's like he can't count for both, in my opinion.
Well,
so
Jalen Hurts counts for Alabama and Oklahoma, doesn't he?
He's OU to me. He wouldn't have got drafted if it wasn't for his OU year. You know what I mean?
Actually, graduated college from Alabama, though.
Yeah, I feel he's the only one where it's a little bit murky, but everybody else, I think, is pretty clear.
Here's why I'm going to say Aikman.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Aikman for this reason. He played as a true freshman.
Sure.
Wasn't good, wasn't pretty. Had to replace Danny Bradley, and they lost, I think, to Kansas. It was not pretty. He comes in and he starts his second year, and he is the man. Switzer's saying, I'm going to take this wishbone, I'm going to roll it up into a ball, I'm going to throw it in the trash because I got Troy freaking Aikman as my quarterback.
Yeah.
Halfway through the season, Troy breaks his leg, goes back to Barry Switzer and says, what should I do? And Barry says, I got you the hookup out in L.A., man. Sunshine, Pretty Girls, and Terry Donahue's going to be your coach. You're going to be a UCLA Bruin. Sure. Wow, really? Thanks, coach. None of that was Troy Aikman's fault. So anybody who says Troy Aikman not a Sooner, man, I disagree. He was a Sooner through and through. He was the best quarterback, arguably, in the country that year. He chose OU. Why? Because they ran the wishbone. Well, he changed that for him. So I just think he gets undersold. He's a guy that, it's not like Rattler. Screw this, I'm out of here, I'm going to South Carolina. Or Caleb Williams, screw this, I'm out of here, I'm going to Southern Cal. He broke his leg and then got kind of, as Switzer reinstalled the wishbone,
right.
Jamel Holloway, and recruited Charles Thompson, it was like, yeah, Troy, I'm going to find a spot for you. Don't worry. He just didn't have a spot anymore. So people who hold that against him. Now, here's what I'd like to see, Josh. I'd like to see the University of Oklahoma include him on their list on their website of former Sooners who have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Why would you distance yourself from the legacy in any way, shape, or form of Troy Aikman? It's not like he's not still the most visible pro football announcer out there. I mean, he kind of is. He's
Yeah,
the
he
Kirk
is.
Herbstreit
I
of
would say he
pro
is. Yeah.
football announcing. So if I'm OU, I'm doing a better job of being proactive with my relationship with Troy Aikman. I think Troy came back for a game a couple of years ago. He was in Dallas for a Fox game, and he drove up the road. And I can't remember what game it was, but he was on the sideline, and that's what you need. You need Troy Aikman to come stand on the sideline of your games every 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then you can kind of say, Troy Aikman, that's our guy. That's our guy. Yeah, he
Sure.
finished his career at UCLA,
Yeah.
but that's our guy too.
It's just, I don't know, a little bit of a gut feel. He's just not a Sooner to me. He's a Bruin to me. On his NFL page, it has college UCLA listed
Yeah.
right there. And I guess it's like kind of, I mean, it's not okay. It's okay to me, to call him. He is a former Sooner, literally. Obviously, he did play, but it's like whenever you're doing a stat like that, it's like, I don't know. It's a murky area. At the
If
same
he
time, it's like,
stays
does Texas Tech and A&M, do they get allegiance on Baker and Kyler? Most OU
right,
fans would say no. So it's
yeah.
like you got to play it both ways. But
If he stays healthy that year, 85, I'm forecasting and predicting right here with 30 years of hindsight behind me.
yeah,
I'm
40
predicting
almost.
that he would win the Heisman and OU wins the national championship. That was a fantastic team. Jerome Brown fell on his leg and broke his leg, and if not for that and some plays by Vinny Testaverde, man. But he would. I really seriously, he was on fire that year. He would have won the Heisman.
Sure. But so Joe Mixon throws a touchdown. Pretty cool. It was like the
That
first
was cool.
It was like the first running back since, I want to say it was like since like the 70s to throw a touchdown pass.
1980, my Rams,
1980.
Lawrence
Okay.
McCutcheon.
Well, there you go. So some synergy there. But so they come up just short. Norman native Zach Taylor comes up short, but Bobby Evans and Obo get themselves some rings. Pretty cool. Obo did have a tackle in the game, and Bobby Evans did see the field. He came in, I think, on special teams. So they both played. So they have a little bit of that. They can hold on to that forever. They played in the Super Bowl, and they won it. And you can never take that away from them. So pretty cool for those guys. They win the Super Bowl. Who wins the Super Bowl? I'm still waiting for a championship in some capacity. It'll happen at some point, I think, but we'll have to see. So we have a lot of kind of various football things to get into, obviously, before we get into other sports. And we're about to have 4 sports in season at the same time here in just a couple of days. And also, like, football is just never not in season at the University of Oklahoma. So it's a busy time here coming up as baseball starts this week and softball is underway, and obviously basketball. But let's get some football stuff here first. Quick recruiting update. And it's just a top 6, which is not, real serious. But when it's, a prospect the caliber of Anthony Hill, it gets your attention a little bit more than other guys. Number 1 linebacker in 2023, number 9 player in 2023, 5-star Anthony Hill. We talked about him a little bit before. He visited Oklahoma in January. He's been offered by OU since like pre-COVID-19, and that's how long it's been since he was offered by OU. He included OU in his top 6 this week, which is obviously substantial just because he's such a – I mean, it's hard to project if guys are going to be NFL players when they're in high school, but he feels and looks like an NFL player. Obviously, if they get to the next stage here, Hoove, and that's significant because he is, seemingly a can't-miss guy at the next level.
Yeah, he's probably as close as a can't miss guy as there is. When he's talking about Texas A&M, he's talking about Texas, Alabama, Miami, USC, and Oklahoma. If you're a Sooner, you got to like your chances in that group just to be in consideration with a school that just got the number 1 recruiting class, not just this year, but in history, highest ranked recruiting class at Texas A&M. Of course, Texas always finishes at the top in the Big 12 in recruiting. I say always, but not really. Alabama is the one you want to measure yourself against. And of course, you do not want to lose that battle to USC, but then there's Miami in the picture as well. For Oklahoma to be in the discussion right here with him, for him, is really big. Like you said, the number 1 player in the linebacker class in 2023, the number 2 player in the state of Texas. That's some heady stuff. So 5-star guy that's got that kind of talent, has been on your recruiting radar for as long as you said, 3 years now. You wonder if the new guys, Brent Venables, Todd Bates, Ted Roof, all those guys, can put their lasso around this kid and bring him in, because it's a it's a big one. It's a really, really big one for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's local-ish. He's from Denton, so obviously it's right down the road. I assume that I don't have a map in front of me, but I'm assuming that Denton is closer to Norman than Austin is. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, by far.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm not great at geography. Don't get on me on that. I'm not great at geography, but yeah. So Denton's closer to Norman than any of the other teams in his final six. So, I mean, that you kind of have that going for it as far as his family coming up to see him play and things like that, and we'll see. Obviously, that's one that we're going to keep a very close eye on over the months and stuff, and we'll see if he makes more visits or Venables makes more visits and things like that. So, because that's just a really big player at the next level. So that was kind of the big recruiting news of the week. Obviously, signing day in the review, that kind of slows down a little bit, but still some news there for OU fans to be excited about. Anthony Hill in the top six, or includes Oklahoma in his top six. Now, looking ahead at the next year's team, from the future to just this coming team, Athlon Sports has been, with signing day kind of, in the rear view now. Athlon Sports has been doing a kind of a cool series where they kind of take each conference and they basically do rankings within the conference, returning rosters, quarterbacks, stuff like that. They had OU as the number 2 returning roster, or number 2 roster, I should say, going into next year in the Big 12, just behind Texas. And they had Dillon Gabriel, the number 1 quarterback, which I said this whenever they got Dillon Gabriel, and I got a little bit of pushback on it from kind of people outside. Obviously, OU fans are going to love that, but outside, by saying that Dillon Gabriel is going to be the best quarterback in this league, or at least on paper he is.
Yeah.
Athlon Sports agrees with that, and that's pretty significant for OU fans to feel like after all this turnover, after all this transition, number 2 roster, which they kind of always on paper have a less talented roster than Texas on paper, and then Dillon Gabriel, the top quarterback.
I was a little surprised by that, Josh. You got Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State, who was the first team All Big 12 quarterback last year, deservedly so.
Mm-hmm.
You got Gary Bohannon at Baylor. All he did was win the Big 12 last year, guide his team to the championship. So I'm a little surprised. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just, if you had asked me what is Athlon going to say, I would have said that probably put them in that order, because those are 2 guys who are returning in the Big 12, 1 and 2. And probably put Dillon Gabriel third. But to see Dillon Gabriel being third in this class, in this quarterback class in the Big 12 conference, ranked again by Athlon Preseason Magazine, it's got to tell you something about what people think about his time at UCF. He was very, very productive, even in the year that he broke his collarbone. 271 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Very prolific, very productive. And I think being reunited with Jeff Lebby is a pretty strong indicator that Oklahoma's offense is going to put up big numbers, and it's always going to be the trigger man who does it. It's going to be Dillon Gabriel this time. So the one that kind of cracked me up is behind Dillon Gabriel at 1, Spencer Sanders at 2, is a guy who's never played college football before. Quinn Ewers, the number 1 quarterback in the country in 2022, who reclassified to 21. Went up to Ohio State. Now he's at Texas. So everybody is already buying the Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You throw your bait out in the water and you reel it in a little bit and you wait for a bite. Everybody's already nibbling at the Texas bait. Well, Quinn Ewers is on the team. He's going to be the best quarterback in the Big 12. So it's going to be fun to watch, but I'm not buying. Listen, I've got a long library of reading that tells me what Texas is right now and what they have been,
Sure.
and what they're most likely going to be. I need to see it with my own eyes before I bite on that Quinn Ewers is going to be the top quarterback and Texas is going to compete for a Big 12 title.
Absolutely. And we've had some great OU Texas quarterback matchups over the years. I got to think Dillon Gabriel, Quinn Ewers is one of the weirdest. It's just like the path to those guys being there. Yeah. I mean, at this time last year, if you said the 2022 OU Texas game is going to be Dillon Gabriel versus Quinn Ewers, you wouldn't even know who was on which team. You'd be like, how did that happen? So that's going to be interesting. And they're very different guys, obviously. So that's an interesting one. By the way, I saw Dillon Gabriel. They posted a practice. So we're in 26 on his practice jersey. I don't know what to make of that, but just throwing that out there. He was wearing 26 on his. They just tweeted it today.
Big Kennedy Brooks fan.
Yeah, big Kennedy Brooks fan. So kind of I don't know. It's always funny to me that guys have different practice numbers. I don't really know why that's a thing in football. Not uncommon, but so there you go. read into that however you will. I'm sure fans will take that some way. So yeah, Dylan Gabriel, number 2 quarterback or number 1 quarterback in the league, which I agree with, and OU roster number 2, despite all the losses from the portal and even more so, really the draft. I mean, we talked about last week, 11 guys invited to the combine. That's a lot of talent leaving your team, and yet, there you go. Brent Venables and company have done a pretty nice job supplementing in through the portal, and seemingly on paper have a team that's more than prepared to try and win the Big 12 again next year. Now, a couple of small coaching news to touch on real quick. A couple of former Sooners. Talk about them first. Jamarcus McFarland goes to TCU. Obviously, former Sooner. He was announced as the Louisiana Tech defensive line coach in December. And now he took the job with TCU. I don't know what happened there. I assume he just got a better offer and just decided to take the jump. So he goes to TCU, and then you have another former Sooner, Sharon Moore, co-OC at Michigan, was announced. So a couple of former Sooners there kind of climbing the coaching ranks, in the last week or so.
That's kind of cool. A lot of these guys, most of these guys that we're talking about, I covered, and plus throw in the 4 guys that are 4 former players that are coaching at Oklahoma on this staff. I think it's 4, but that's a lot of guys just in my career that I covered as former Sooners. Sharon Moore is cool because he kind of moved away. I think he was if I'm not mistaken, a junior college guy, came in and played for a little while and went away and did his thing, and now he's offensive coordinator, co-OC at Michigan. It's really big time. One of those guys is coaching with Jamarcus McFarland. It's Malcolm Kelly. At TCU's coaching wide receivers. I had a suspicion that Malcolm Kelly might get a job offer when the things opened up at Oklahoma, and he still might. He still might work his way back to his alma mater. But yeah, I mean, what does that say, Josh? It says that Bob Stoops was, and I can say this from personal experience, is a good teacher of football. The guy's in the Hall of Fame now for a reason. It wasn't just because he won games. It's because he was able to teach the game of football to so many young people, so many young men. And look at them now. There's so many coaches. When you talk about the Bob Stoops tree, we think about people who coached under him and then became head coaches. But think about his players that have now gotten out into the coaching industry, man. It's crazy. There's a lot of them. There's I want to say 11, 12, 13 former Stoops players that are Division I coaches right now.
Yeah, that was honestly my takeaway was, geez, there's a lot of former players that are on staff somewhere. It's almost, it's feeling like, that just year to year, OU was bound to play a handful of their former guys on coaching staffs from now on, just because there are so many guys landing on different teams, which is, pretty cool. So McFarland to TCU and Moore, he was already with Michigan, but he gets elevated up to co-OC. So that's pretty cool, obviously.
And Josh, my Stoop story that I can verify that the man can coach. We played in a golf, one of those scramble tournaments preseason, right before the season starts, and he and I were paired up. Oddly, right? We went out and we played for 4 hours, and I am a terrible golfer. I mean, when
me too.
Tanner Groves was telling us the story about shooting 120 as in junior high or whatever, JV. That's like my high score. Like, I'm terrible.
I was low key thinking that's about what I shoot. So
yeah, not really 120, but I've shot 120 before. And I was spraying it all over the course that day, probably because the head coach was standing right next to me watching me, and I'm all a little bit nervous, a little bit wound up, and not getting my grip right. My feet are all over the place. He comes up, he says, "Do you want a pointer?" And I said, "I want a lot of pointers." And he said, "All right, here's what I want you to do." And he said, "Your knees are coming through too fast, which is bringing your hands through too fast, and you're opening up your club face." He said, "What you need to do is slow your lower body down, and you'll slow your hands down, and your club face will come through square." The rest of the round, Josh, everything I hit was straight as a pin. And I just looked at him and I said, "My God, Bob Stoops, if you can coach me to hit a golf ball, you can flat out coach." So that's my Bob Stoops can coach story.
That's awesome. What are the odds that he have you brought that back up to him ever? Does he remember that?
I don't know. I would think it was 2005, 2006, something like that.
He's probably played a lot of golf since then.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't remember that, but I remembered it.
Yeah.
He also coached me one time. He said, "See that tree right there?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "See that house right there?" "Yeah." He goes, "Hit it between those." because he played the course before. I hit it square between them. I'm like, huh.
Dang,
How did
Bob.
dude
Yeah,
knows what he's doing.
absolutely. That's awesome. That is awesome. He's played probably a few hundred rounds since then, but he might remember. Might remember. You might want to bring it up next time you see him. Which who knows how long that'll be? He's not the interim coach anymore. That was a fun month, but that's over. So elsewhere in the OU coaching, now this is a little more relevant. It's a lot more relevant, obviously, to the current team because Chip Viney has left OU. He's going to San Jose State to be the defensive backs coach there. Um, Chip Viney is a funny guy because it's like you just hear his name all the time, and players really talk highly of him. Remember, he is almost semi-famously during the season? I can't remember when it was when somebody tweeted something to the effect of OU has a better cornerbacks coach on staff than the one that they actually have, referring to
Yeah.
Chip Viney being a better coach than Roy Manning. And Latrell McCutcheon quote tweeted and said, I would agree with that, or something to that extent, basically agreeing that Chip Viney was a better coach than Roy Manning, who, of course, he now is at USC with Roy Manning. But that is, we digress from that. But so Chip Viney leaves Oklahoma. He's going to San Jose State. He's been with OU a long time, since 2013. He was with Nevada in 2017, but other than that, he's been with OU since 2013, working with cornerbacks, special teams, defensive analyst, director of player development. He's worn a lot of hats. So he goes over to San Jose State. He's a young guy, just 32, I think, 32 years old. So he goes to San Jose State, a big opportunity for him, and it seemed like just a matter of time, really, until somebody put him on their on-field staff, and it happened this week.
Yeah, coached, I think, with Jay Norvell at Nevada
He
in
did, yeah.
2017. He got out and, he wants to be a coach, wants to be a college football coach. But he's so good at being an analyst. He's so good at being a recruiting director and stuff like that. He kind of redefined that position a little bit for Oklahoma and allowed Lincoln Riley to say, here, this is a guy who's got a special skill set. Let's create a position for him, so to speak. And they did, and he was very successful at it. So, yeah, he's a guy that's going to be a little bit missed, but if he's, I can imagine he's going to be probably a fine cornerbacks coach.
Absolutely. So we keep an eye on him and what he does over there. And like I said, it seems like he's always been really highly talked about. It seems like nobody's ever had anything but positive things to say, players and stuff. So we'll see how he does out there. Maybe he'll continue to climb the ranks. Maybe he'll find his way back to Oklahoma one day. I don't know. So we'll keep an eye on Viney. But good for him, obviously, getting that opportunity with San Jose State. All right, last thing before we get into some other sports. Not obviously at all a fun thing to talk about. We'll bring it up just to kind of acknowledge it. Adrian Peterson, who obviously is a legend at Oklahoma. I mean, one of the greatest college running backs of all time, one of the best NFL running backs of all time. Had an altercation over the weekend with his wife. He was arrested for it was like a domestic. What was the exact verbiage? I want to make sure I get it right. Domestic, like kind of altercation, basically.
I think it was, they just called it a domestic incident.
Yeah, something like that. He got arrested for that. Didn't get charged. They, ended up the district attorney ended up not charging. They were coming back from the Super Bowl. He and his wife had an altercation on the plane, looking to fly back from Los Angeles, and so that happened over the weekend. Obviously, it just sucks. You don't want that to happen to anybody, or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. We don't know all the details, obviously, but a former Sooner who's gotten in trouble with being a little violent, obviously in the past. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And the way Adrian described it to what's the guy's name? Mark Berman, Channel 26, Fox 26 in Houston, scored a phone interview with Adrian from L.A. He said that it's a state law that because there was a scratch on his wife's finger, that they had to take him in. Now, the scratch being caused by Adrian, when apparently he and his wife Ashley both said taking the ring, he was taking the ring off her finger. Now, what was he in a bad mood? Was he using some force? I don't know. But there was somebody apparently that was sitting behind Adrian on the plane who said, "I saw what happened," and went and got a flight attendant. hey, these two are fighting, and looks dangerous to me, and I got scared. I don't know what happened, but that's
Right.
the picture that Adrian painted. He said, me and my wife got into an argument on the plane. That was pretty much the gist of it. He said, I ended up grabbing her hand and taking the ring off her finger. Because there was a scratch on her hand, the state of California had to press charges. He said, literally, that's why I went to jail, because the ring left a scratch on her finger. He said, we just had a disagreement. And here's what he acknowledges. He said, I know the headlines, domestic violence. You'd think I beat her up or something. He says it was nothing like that. They had attended a Super Bowl party Saturday night. DirecTV hosted a Super Bowl party, and they were flying back Sunday morning. And flying, of course, puts everybody in a bad mood, and you just can't do stuff like that on an airplane. You just can't. Obviously, there were witnesses who thought they saw one thing or another. He said the passenger sitting behind them played a role in it and, quote, made it more than it was and brought more attention to it. Okay. That's unfortunate. He said, even though my wife doesn't want to press any charges, he said there was a scar on her finger, and the woman behind us told us what she had seen. Oh, and they got to do this because it's a state law. He said, the only thing I will say is it looks horrible because Adrian Peterson arrested for domestic violence. He said, I don't hit women. It's not that type of situation.
So there you go. Obviously, we don't know everything. We're not going to speculate, obviously, or anything like that. The small scratch that is consistent with what the initial report said was that there was it was like a very minor injury, a very small mark, or whatever is what the initial report said. So that would line up, obviously. So we'll keep an eye on that. It sounds like it's probably going to kind of fade away, but unfortunately for Adrian, like I touched on, because of past transgressions, people are not going to really have much, room for, it's going to be kind of quick to kind of prosecute there. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, we hope that nothing really happened. Nobody wants something like that to happen, obviously. Right. So, yeah.
The LA County District Attorney said that they would not seek formal charges. He was arrested, he was detained, and he was released on $50,000 bond. But TMZ, who reported this thing in the first place, there's people on the airplane, and the first thing they do, they see something. That's Adrian Peterson. I'm going to call TMZ. They had the story before he even was taken off the airplane, the way I understand it. But they reported the next day that the LA city officials, the police department, municipal, could continue to seek charges in this thing. But it sounds like a big nothing burger. I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, no, it's a bad headline for one of the most beloved and respected former Sooner football players, for sure.
For sure. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we will see if it just kind of fades off or if there's more to it. Obviously, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. All right, that's it for first segment. We'll take a break here. We'll come back. Other sports, men's basketball playing games, women's basketball playing games. Softball season is underway. Baseball is about to get underway. Lots going on. We'll talk about it all next on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Kerry with Trade Pros here. We've got a brand new service program coming out this year. It's the new All-Star Service Program. It's only $25 a month. The great thing about it is it's going to save you guys a ton of money throughout the year. Furnace and air conditioning repairs can be very expensive. If you guys need a service call and you're signed up with us, you're not going to have to pay that service charge. The repair is under $500. Trade Pros is going to take care of that as well. Anything over that, you guys are just going to be responsible for 25% of that. Go give us a like on Facebook. Check us out at tradeprosokc.com or give us a call at 405-639-9991.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at all_Sooners. I'm at Josh Callaway, who's at Johnny Hoover. Ryan's not with us, but still follow him at Radios Ryan. And of course, our website is allsooners.com. We're a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Okay, we'll get into some other sports here. We're about to enter the period where 4 sports are in season at the same time. At least 4 major sports. There's a lot more than that. 4 major ones that we cover really closely on allsooners.com. And then, like I said, football never stops. So you have that going on as well. We'll start with men's basketball here. And again, we're going to talk to the Groves Bros in the third segment. So obviously be sure to stick around with that. They got great insight onto the kind of attitude of the team right now. And, kind of a little peek behind the curtain of a team that's not going to give up. That's what Porter Moser said last night, that this team is not dead. This team's going to keep fighting after they lost again last night. Another brutal loss to Texas in overtime by 2. The last 2 games, since well, I guess Texas Tech was after our last show. So since our last show, they beat top 10 Texas Tech by 15. They lose at the Fog by 2. Ryan and I were there. It was electric. It was absolutely awesome being at the Fog for the first time. And then they lose to Texas last night at home by 2 points in overtime. I mean, obviously the team is close, and it feels like they're almost capable of beating anybody.
Yeah.
But putting it together and finishing the job is proving to be a difficult thing. They're still projected to make the tournament by Joe Lunardi. Everything is still out in front of them, despite being just 14-12 now. But obviously, they got to find a way to button up the end of the game situations if they're going to find a way to make the tournament.
Yeah, I think I saw where Jerry Palm, the CBS, had them on the outside looking in. They're not in his bracket.
Yeah, it depends where you looked. Yeah.
Yeah. They're 39, 40 in that range in the net rankings. I don't know what their RPI is, but last night I was watching the game on TV, and Fran Fraschilla talked about the NCAA selection committee using the eye test. The eye test. I didn't know we were using the eye test. I didn't know that was a metric that we're picking the 68.
That sounds a little CFP-ish to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you've got how many automatic qualifiers? Is it 28?
I think it's more. I think it's in the low 30s. I could be wrong.
I thought it was 31, but I looked it up this morning and I thought I saw the number 28. Anyway, whatever that number is, the rest of those guys get in. You've got 37-ish spots left in that number area, whatever. And you start to break it down, like who's the most deserving? What about these mid majors? Who are these Power 5 runner ups? And also rans. And you get to the Big 12, and you've got 7 teams that look very tournament worthy, and Oklahoma's slipping out of that 7. They're 14-12 now. They're 3 what's their record in conference play? 4-9 in conference play.
Yeah.
So they're slipping off that bubble. They're falling off that last 4 in line. And I think they're past the hardest part of their schedule. They've got Iowa State this week. Wouldn't surprise me to see them go up there and lose by double digits to Iowa State. Iowa State's got that kind of mojo in that building. It's always an electric atmosphere. But you're right. They play to a level where it looks like they can literally beat anybody. Like if they get in the tournament and they get a couple of favorable draws and they play good, I could see them winning 2 games.
I mean, yeah.
or more, making a run in the tournament. But Josh, you've been courtside for all these games now. How many possessions do they give away?
Gosh,
the Moji Gibson possession last night. It was a little bit of token pressure, and he just kind of let it out of his hand, and it floated right to the Texas guy, and they took it down and scored. It's like you could really use those 2 points at the end of the game. And it's been, the Kansas game. Obviously, there were a handful of instances where you wish. If you're on the team, you're on the roster, you're on the bench, you're on the coaching staff, you look back at this one instance and say, if we just would have not done that one thing, we might have had a chance at the end of the game to actually win instead of, needing a pull-up jumper to try to send it to overtime. By the way, shoot the 3 there. Don't go to overtime. Don't try to force overtime at KU. Fog Allen Fieldhouse is not in your favor.
100%.
You got to hit the 3 there. Tanner Groves was on fire. He probably should have gotten a good look. And then last night, it was Ethan Shagwa for the 3 for the game winner.
Shagwa for 3 for the win. I was going to ask you what you thought. He was wide open, but that's not who you want taking the shot.
No, they had 4 guys who were heavy in the scoring column last night, and he was not one of them. He would not be a guy that I would put on that list of, Harkless has 19 and Gibson has 16, and then on down. Goldwire, I think 15, whatever his number was. There were guys who were scoring. There were guys who were hot, who were in a little bit of a mode of filling it up. And it was Shagwa who took the shot. Now, at some point, the clock's winding down like it was against Kansas. The clock's winding down. You get the ball with 16 seconds. Last night it was 19 seconds. And you're taking your time and you're milking it all the way down. You don't want Texas to get a run out and an opportunity to win at the end. But that's 2 games in a row. You have the basketball in your hand with an opportunity to win the game, and both times you drained the clock down to nothing and got off a desperation type shot. Just got to be better. Got to be more efficient in that little sliver of time.
Yeah. No. To back to your previous point, I mean, yeah, there's so many possessions given away over the course of the game, and they add up. They add up, especially in close games. You're thinking, man, I wish we had a couple more possessions that ended in a shot. You know what I mean? Just first possession of the second half, they come right out, an immediate turnover. It's like, how does that happen? You should have exactly what you want to do. So they play so hard. Effort is not the problem at all. I do think Porter Moser's a really good coach, and he's going to have OU being a consistently ranked team, eventually. I just think this year's team maybe isn't talented enough. I feel like that's a brutal way to put it, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what they can do. They are close. They easily could have won at the Fog, the first OU team to win there in 30 years. They easily could have won that game. They easily could have won last night. That's true of a lot of their losses. So we'll see what happens. Everything is still out in front of them in terms of if they win, they have 5 games left. If they win 3 of them, they're almost definitely in the tournament. But that they got to do it. It's gonna be tough to do. So we'll see what happens. It's not an easy schedule. It is easier, but it's still not easy. They still got to go to Ames. They got to go to Lubbock. They got to go to Manhattan, which they haven't won there in forever either.
Yep.
So it's not going to be easy. And they got to win in Kansas City, which has been a bugaboo. Winning some tournament games. So we'll see. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I've predicted if they win 2 of their last 5 and then win one in Kansas City, that'll be 3 wins in the Quad 1 area.
Sure.
That's a good number. That'll be 6 for them, I think. I think they're 3-9 right now, Quad 1. And believe it or not, 3-9 of the top 40 teams, 3-9 is not anywhere near the worst. There's some teams that are 0-6, 0-7 that are ranked in the top 15, 18, 20. You're like, wait a minute, you have 0 Quad 1 wins? So
sure.
Oklahoma's got a nice resume. They've got some good wins. They just need to put some things together and win a couple of games. I really think 3 is the magic number for them.
Yeah, no, I mean they've, the record is ugly. 14-12 is ugly, but they have wins. They do. They have as good a wins. I mean, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Florida. They have good wins on their resume. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting finish to the season. I'm excited to talk to Tanner and Jacob as we go on, and see kind of as things continue to compound and how they get closer and closer to that Selection Sunday, which is less than 4 weeks away. Amazingly, it'll be here before you know it. So we'll see what happens with that. Iowa State, really, really huge game on Saturday, because Iowa State and Kansas State are about the same, I guess, but Manhattan has been so tough for them. Those are kind of the ones that's like you're not going to probably win in Lubbock. If you do that, it's gravy. You need to win the 2 home games. It's going to really come down to, in my opinion, to Iowa State and Kansas State. Those road games, those are huge. You need at least one of them. Got to have one of them. So we'll see if they can get it on Saturday. Now, the women's team, they had a weird week because they just didn't play for a week. It doesn't happen very often. They went Saturday to Saturday without playing. They played, it was Texas, and it was in Austin, I believe, and they lost to the Horns on Saturday. Dipped down in the rankings a little bit. They play Texas Tech back at home tonight. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that game. A tough loss, obviously. They slip in the rankings a little bit. They're a team that's competing for seeding. They're in the tournament, obviously, at this point, but they're trying to get up into that seeding. I mean, they're, whenever they did kind of that ranking update thing, or where the seeding update, where the actual committee puts out a ranking, they were 9. So they're pushing 2 seed. That was before the Texas game. So we'll see if they can get back up to that. Really big game that you've got to have tonight against Texas Tech at home.
Yeah, they lost by 15 at Texas last Saturday. And, they were riding a pretty good high, and they went out there and just kind of laid an egg, and that doesn't help your case. They've been winning a little bit. I'll just say it. I mean, it's not the friendliest thing to say, but they've been winning with a little smoke and mirrors. They try hard. They make shots.
Close games.
They defend. Yeah. They get game winners at the end of the game, and boom, you've won another game. They're 20-4 right now on the season, and they are 9-3 in conference play. They're a game behind Iowa State, who beat them. So you need to win this game coming up Saturday against Iowa State. That's going to be a significant challenge because you're a game behind in the standings. You've already lost to them once. You're playing on their floor. But yeah, you're right. Tonight, OU versus Texas Tech in Norman. I would think the fans are going to be kind of juiced up for that one.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it was the Texas Tech game. It was beating Texas Tech down in Lubbock that really kind of announced this team, if I'm not mistaken. You remember that? When they won earlier in the season, and then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, they went down to Texas Tech and beat the Lady Red Raiders. It is what it is now, but that was a big win at the time. Texas Tech, you see, is in next to last place in the standings in the Big 12. So, but at the time, it was kind of an announcement. Okay, Jenny Baranchik has this team playing at a different level than what they've been playing at in the last few years.
Sure. So we'll see if they can bounce back. That game is tonight, Wednesday, as we're recording this. 6 o'clock tip, I believe, at the Lloyd Noble Center. So that's a big game to get back on track. Softball got the season underway over the weekend. I didn't see a ton of it. Ryan and I were going to Flog back in Lawrence. I did see the opener against UC Santa Barbara. They did what they expected. They put up like a 9 spot in the first inning. Tiare Jennings, first at bat of the season, went yard. That was very apt.
Second year in a row.
Yeah, second year in a row. She has, I think, 4 or 5 bombs already. She's off to a really hot start. And then Jordy Ball is kind of the story. We talked about her going into the year. Patty Gasso said she's sick. I promise you, she's unbelievable. And she had 14 strikeouts, I think it was, against UCLA, number 3 team, and they beat them. So they're off to a 5-0 start. They look the part so far. I mean, what can you say? They're a machine.
Yeah, it's what a team. I mean,
yeah,
56-4 last year, and they might. I don't think it's a stretch to even suggest that they're better this year.
The pitching is better.
How do you do that? How do you even conceive that? Well, you go out and you get the number 1 high school pitcher and player in the country, Jordy Ball. 14 strikeouts against UCLA in California. A packed house.
Big crowd.
Huge crowd. And she went out there and just mowed them down. Like she was like a 4th-year senior and playing against a bunch of freshmen is what it looked like. It's like she's on a different level. Patty Gasso said she's been touching 70, 71. Is it 72 even? On the gun. So yeah, she's ridiculous. She is absolutely ridiculous. And the thing about her is she's fearless. She's not just talented. She's fearless. I saw people commenting on the Facebook stream I was watching. She's got a little Baker Mayfield in her. Anytime somebody comes out brash and excited and gestures and stuff like that, they say, that's Baker Mayfield. But they're right. She is fearless. She does not back down. UCLA roster that's got a bunch of all Pac-12 players on it, got some all-American candidates on it. And she's just like, I'll strike you out too. I don't care. She struck out every batter in the lineup. She struck out, I want to say 5 different times she struck out multiple batters, and twice she struck out the side in the inning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
they only play 7 innings in softball. And she had 14 Ks.
Yeah. I mean, star. I mean, she's a star to me. I mean, she'll be one of the biggest faces on the team for a while. I mean, you don't declare early in softball. She's going to play 4 years, and she's going to own for 4 years, and it's going to be pretty remarkable. So they're off to a great start.
Earning power as an NIL athlete at OU playing softball is way more than it would be in the whatever softball professional national women's fast pitch softball league that they play in.
And last name is Ball. Lots of opportunities with that. Yeah.
Baller.
Yeah. It's almost better that it's not spelled Ball too. Like it really stands out.
A little unique.
So she's incredible. Tiare Jennings off to that great start, obviously, and Jocelyn Allo's doing her thing. She might get the home run record this weekend. I can't remember how close she is. She's getting close, just a few away, I believe. And they have 5 games this weekend in Houston. So they play, let's see, they have Friday at noon against McNeese State. Then at 3 o'clock, they play Houston. Saturday, they do the same thing. They play McNeese State at 12:30, then Houston at noon. And then they finish with Texas State on Sunday, real early, 10 a.m. start there. So they got 5 games out there, probably 5 run rules, if we're being honest. I mean, they've run ruled everybody so far except for UCLA, I think, unless I'm misremembering. No, wait. Didn't they let this is horrible radio, horrible podcasting. They let Loyola Marymount play them close. That was 5-0. Right. Yeah, but they're off to a great start, obviously. They've only given up the 1 run. It was to UCLA. And so, like you said, they're better. I think they are better this year because they've upgraded the pitching. I mean, it's basically the same lineup, but upgraded pitching. And that's really all you need to say. Jordy Ball is fantastic, and they added Hope Troutwine, the North Texas transfer, who's really good too. And so, yeah, the pitching is better, and the lineup is still the lineup. So they're not gonna. It's gonna be tough to beat them. It's gonna be real tough to beat them.
Yeah, the only hitter they lost was Nicole Mendez. So everybody else is back.
Yeah, everybody else is back. Which Nicole Mendez obviously was more known for her fielding and batted toward the bottom of the order. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of unfair, quite honestly. Patty Gasso is just built a monster out there.
It's a dynasty.
It is a dynasty in the making for sure. Just in this current iteration of the team. So they got to a good start. They'll continue that this weekend. Wrapping it up, the other diamond sport, baseball, starts this week. I'm excited going down to Arlington tomorrow. I'm going to leave tomorrow because they play Friday at 11. The baseball team starts their season against Auburn. Then they play Arizona and Michigan to wrap it up at Globe Life Field, which is where the Texas Rangers play. Exciting to see the team. Skip Johnson, I think, did a pretty good job retooling the roster from last year and what was a disappointing season, obviously. It's a shame. We talk about it all the time, but that 2020 team was really good. Omaha caliber. And you can't guarantee anybody's going to Omaha. It's so hard to get there. But Omaha caliber team. And obviously they lose a lot of that team. They didn't get to actually play the season out. Last year was disappointing. They were expected to be a tournament team. Weren't really all that close. And now this year they come in seemingly better on paper. They look to have buttoned up the pitching staff. It looks like, at least on paper. And they get it started on Friday. I'm interested to see what it looks like, Hoove. Obviously, you watched the team last year as well, kept an eye on them, and they start a new season on Friday. What's a huge year for Skip and kind of the program in general, which is at kind of a crossroads. Like they kind of need to crank it up before that SEC move.
Well, they'll be the worst program in the SEC, will they not? If they go in right
toward
now,
the bottom, toward the bottom.
If this year's team and last year's team were to transition into the SEC, they would finish last in the conference.
Yeah,
Oklahoma's really need to upgrade their recruiting, their facility, their recruiting budget, how much they spend, the scouting, everything that they're doing needs to be better. Every element of college baseball, Josh, needs to be better if you're going to go into the SEC and hope to compete. And listen. The SEC, you don't muck around. It's like football. If you're not in there to win it all, you might finish 8-4 because there might be enough crappy teams at the bottom of the side of the schedule. But more than likely, if you're not in there invested fully to win the whole thing, you're going to finish at the bottom and you're going to be embarrassed. So I know Joe Castiglione does not want his baseball team to get embarrassed. I would expect significant upgrades in the coming years. You're right. This is a big year for Skip, big year for him and his coaching staff. Just on the field, Josh, I was really looking forward to watching Cade Horton play last year, and then
he's a big addition.
It would have been huge. But he's out for the year with was it Tommy John? And
I think so.
Yeah, and he just he's a guy that's got a ton of talent, local kid, got all the talent in the world, chose Oklahoma over pro baseball, and what does he do? Gets hurt as a freshman. So I am really looking forward to seeing what he's about this year. If he's fully healthy, I hope he is.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've talked about, anytime that, somebody's been asked about the lineup, we had Peyton Graham and Jake Bennett. We talked to them last week and they all kind of mentioned, Cade Horton, like they kind of bring him up. Like he's standing out in practice. It seems like Cade Horton, Jimmy Crooks, expect to be a big year. The catcher was really awesome last year. Brett Squires, who was really good toward the end of last year. And then obviously the big name is Peyton Graham. I just said he's moving over from third base to shortstop, kind of filling that spot that Brandon Zaragoza as left. He was at the shortstop at OU forever, it felt like. So Peyton Graham moves over. Lineup should be better. Pitching staff should be better because, you add a couple of guys in the transfer portal, some JUCO guys that I've heard a lot of good things about. Chaz Martinez, lefty, and then, and then David Sandlin, big right-hander. Those guys are both expected to make immediate impact, like in the rotation, probably this weekend. So we'll see what kind of impact all the new additions can make. I do think Skip Johnson did a really good job adding to the roster in one off season, kind of recognizing where they needed help and doing it. Now they have to actually do it on the field. But, I think as far as on paper, they should be a lot better than last year. So we'll see.
Yeah, can you imagine being a college baseball coach and you have to deal with the draft and you're trying to find JUCOs who are considering the draft, and you seniors who are maybe wanting out, and then boom, they drop the transfer portal on you, and you're like, wait a minute, now I got the transfer portal weighing on all my decisions. So that's got to be a calculus that is, I know it is. It's way beyond my reckoning, way beyond my ability to figure out. So shout out those baseball coaches for taking all those variables and having some kind of semblance of a team. It just sounds impossible to me.
For sure. And shout out Sandlin, too. He's from my neck of the woods, Owasso, Oklahoma. Baseball powerhouse in the state of Oklahoma. So he was at Eastern Oklahoma State, and he came over 6'4". I've heard a lot of really good things about him. So I'm excited to see what he looks like potentially this weekend. We don't know the rotation this weekend, but I think him, Chaz Martinez, and Jake Bennett will be the guys. I don't know what order. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But should be fun to see them, what they look like this weekend at Globe Life. Obviously, keep up with allsooners.com. I'll have all the coverage from Arlington. Looking forward to that. And then they come home next week for the home opener the Tuesday after. All right. I think that's it for us on this part of the show. Obviously, we have the Groves Bros coming up in segment 3. Great conversation with them about a wide variety of topics, but of course, what the team is feeling and doing right now as they try to gear up for an NCAA tournament run. So that's it for this segment. Stick with us. Groves Bros coming up in the final segment of the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey guys, John Hoover for Trade Pros. Listen, they got something special going on at Trade Pros. It's the All-Star Service Agreement. Sign up now for just $25 a month, and the guys at Trade Pros will come out twice a year for routine maintenance. Plus, you get up to 2 pounds of Freon every year at no charge. And get this, if your heating or air unit needs work, it's not going to cost you anything if the repair is less than $500. And if it's more than $500, your cost comes in at just 25% of the Trade Pros price. It's the All-Star Service Program. Some conditions apply, so give the guys at Trade Pros a call, 405-639-9991, or hit them up on the website, tradeprosokc.com.
Back for the final segment of the SI Sooners podcast, and we are back for our weekly segment with the Groves brothers. That's right, Tanner Groves and Jacob Groves join the SI Sooners podcast exclusively every Wednesday. We call it the Groves Bros, appropriately. Tanner and Jacob are able to join us each week thanks to our good friends at Trade Pros. If you need heating or air solutions, or you just have questions, just call those guys at Trade Pros, 405-639-9991. They're born and raised in Oklahoma. They're locally owned, locally operated. Their home office is in Oklahoma City, and they know exactly what you're going to be dealing with. So, Tanner, Jacob, appreciate you guys as always being here. Glad to be back with you guys.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah. Week 2. Can't wait.
Week 2. Absolutely. So we're going to start off with a very serious topic. I know we've talked a lot about basketball and sports, but we're going to get into my wheelhouse of some serious topics here. Who'd you have in the Super Bowl? And kind of what was your, your first time away from home? Where was your Super Bowl party this year?
Yeah, so for the Super Bowl, definitely had the Rams, being I'm a big Cooper Kupp fan, just, both being from Washington. He was an Eastern Washington guy, and so were Jake and I, and so definitely wanted the Rams to win. So we're pretty happy to see that. And we just watched it in the house. We didn't really have cable, so we had to find a stream to figure it out through the phone, and it was a whole process, but we made it work, and enjoyed it. So
yeah, I'm definitely was going for the Rams as well. Like Tanner said, I mean, Cooper Kupp, he's a hard guy not to like, and it's kind of funny. We just watching the Rams all season and kind of how they've been playing and how Cooper's been doing, and when they got Odell halfway through the season, I mean, we love watching them play. So that was fun. And then it's kind of different because usually we had big Super Bowl parties back home. I mean, we would either host a big party at our house with all of like our family friends, like in our little neighborhood area, and all the kids would watch it and everything. And so it was definitely not what we're used to when it comes to Super Bowl watch parties, but we had a good time still.
So being from Alaska, a lot of my listeners on the radio know this. Podcast listeners might know it also. We growing up in the 70s. We didn't have a lot of viewing options. One of them was the Los Angeles Rams. So I grew up from 4 years old watching Rams games. Big Rams fan. Super Bowl champs. Cooper Kupp is the man.
Yeah.
MVP. Dang right.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tanner, I want to ask you guys something about other sports, but first I feel obligated, Tanner, to ask you about the Sonics shirt. First off, pretty much everybody in your guys' neck of the woods absolutely hates the Oklahoma City Thunder. Do you guys hate the Thunder? I feel like I have to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. There's definitely a lot of people that are, I would say, more on the west side of the state. There's a lot of people that are pretty bitter, like near the Seattle area and just on that side of the state. We're more on the east side of the state, and so I would say that I'm not super bitter about that. I'm actually, I actually followed the Thunder, and so
yeah,
I would say the Thunder are probably my team, but was definitely a little bit bitter to see them go, and then just with them having Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and even James Harden for a bit, like just that stint like of basketball, like during that time. That was hard to watch just because I was like, man, these guys could all be playing up here in Seattle. I could be going to games, watching these guys play like local, and so that kind of was kind of hard to see when in their glory days when I was in high school and in middle school. This is a KD shirt, 35, but
oh, nice.
I'm a big KD fan. But once he left Thunder, I was pretty mad about that. So. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the old Sonics Thunder situation.
Sure, Jake. What about you? Do you have a team that you prefer? Do you kind of keep up Thunder? Do you care?
Not as much, honestly. I was a big fan of the Sonics growing up. They used to come to Spokane and play in like a couple games every year, and so I kind of back when like Ray Allen played for him. He was always my favorite player growing up, watching them, and then. I think he went to Boston, and so I kind of followed him to Boston and was a huge fan of him and Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Rondo and those guys when they played in Boston. And so, but now it's not as much. I mean,
sure,
there's a pretty big push to bring the Sonics back, and so hopefully we can make something happen there. I mean, I think that'd be pretty awesome for the state of Washington for sure.
Sure, and
yeah, speaking on that too, I think it's crazy that. Seattle hasn't even brought a team back just because of the amount of there's so many like millionaires up in the Washington area just with Microsoft. You got Boeing, all those crazy big like tech companies, like airline companies. It's just crazy that no one stepped up and said, hey, we want to buy a team. So like Jake said, I definitely hope it happens soon.
Yeah, I hope they get a team back too, because that Thunder Sonics rivalry immediately will be one of the best in the NBA.
Doubt.
It'll be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I definitely would like to see that. But I was just curious, you guys, growing up, kind of going off that Super Bowl conversation, did you guys play football? But did you guys play other sports? Growing up, did you ever think about focusing on one over basketball, or has it kind of always been hoops was number one?
Yeah, we played. I mean, all growing up, obviously, we grew up playing, obviously, like YMCA basketball to start, and then that kind of transitioned into AAU. But we played, I played baseball and football as well, and so kind of I was pretty busy year round. I played football up until I got to the 10th grade, and then I kind of quit and really focused on basketball. It's a different game too because there's so many people nowadays and kids in high school that are just kind of focusing on one sport. And it's funny because the problems that I kind of ran into were just like how much time and effort you have to put into that one sport in order to like become good at it, and so I wanted to play football, but every summer I would be out of town, in basketball tournaments and stuff like that. And so I'd miss the whole summer football session. And then by the time I got to the team in the fall, I'd be a step behind everybody. And so that part of it just wasn't worth it. But we were obviously still big football fans. Love watching college football in the NFL and then even baseball too. I mean, I got buddies who play college baseball. And so I love following them and just kind of keeping up to date with all sports, really.
Yeah, definitely. I would say for me, growing up, similar to Jake, basketball took up so much time, but I think I started playing football in, I think like the 5th grade. Jake and I played tackle football, and From there it kind of just grew, and we played football up until sophomore year in high school. I was never really too great, but I always loved football. I loved playing it just because most of my close friends always played it too, and so I just find extra time after school to hang out with them and have fun doing it. Kind of a cool story, but one of he's 2 years older than me, but the quarterback at our high school was just a stud. His name's Brett Rippon, and he went on to play at Boise State. Played quarterback there and had a really great career. And now I think he's on the Denver Broncos right now as kind of a backup QB. But yeah, he's just a stud. Actually, he was a good friend of mine in high school, and he's just a really good dude. And so yeah, he kind of it was just fun being part of that culture, and so that's kind of why I wanted to continue on playing football in high school. Our high school team, Shadle Park, kind of had some tradition with football. My freshman year, we made it like all the way to I think the semifinals, and then sophomore year we were pretty good too, and made a decent little state run. But yeah, I mean, definitely played a lot of football growing up, and then also, this is kind of funny, but my senior year I played on the JV golf team.
Nice.
And that was a ton of fun because a bunch of my friends did that as well. And I played in one tournament, and I think I shot like 120 or something, maybe more. I was just awful. And so yeah, and because I played in that JV tournament, I was able to win the Scholar Athlete Award at our high school. And so
Nice.
that was pretty cool. So yeah, you have to play in at least two sports to get that award. And because I played JV golf my senior year in high school, I was able to get that award. So it's kind of cool, but yeah. So that's what I'd say.
That's awesome, man. So I got to ask you, the culture in Norman, Oklahoma is football, football, football. When you guys got here, Lincoln Riley was the head coach. They were undergoing a national championship run. That was their goal at the start of the season. Tell us about that kind of culture shock coming from Eastern Washington to one of the meccas of college football, which is, of course, the biggest sport in the United States.
Oh man, it's ridiculous. Just going to our first football game, it was easy to tell just how big of a thing it was. Right when I think the coolest thing for me was, obviously we have a men's basketball team has like a tailgate area, and so we were doing all that. There were, hundreds of thousands more people just in the tailgate area than there was at Eastern Washington. But I think the coolest thing for me was, walking up, you get into the stadium and you walk up the ramp, and then everything just opens up and you can just see thousands of people just sitting in the seats, and the whole football just atmosphere. It was just pretty incredible, honestly. Just the first time I went in there for a game, it was pretty nuts. And so it made the games, really enjoyable to watch. You got preseason Heisman front runners, you got, stud freshman quarterbacks, just a really good team that's ranked. We never really got to experience that at Eastern Washington. And so it was just really cool to, be part of that, be a fan, and get to watch that from the stands. This year is really awesome.
Yeah, it was just our first kind of football experience was unreal, honestly. It was crazy how, just like Tanner said, you walk into that stadium and everything just opens up. It's unbelievable. And we've seen a little bit of that before. I mean, we've been to I've been to, quite a few Washington State games where football is, relatively big. They're a Pac-12 team, but you go to those games and there's 40-50,000 people there, and it's good, but this was like a whole new world. I mean, there's double the amount of people. There's like hundreds of thousands of people that just come to campus to watch the game and everything. And, the roads are all blocked off, and there's huge TVs in the middle of the street so you can watch the game. Like it is unbelievable. It was unbelievable for us to see and just be a part of. Honestly, it was super cool.
Yeah, I've heard about that culture shock.
The one thing Eastern Washington has that OU does not, the red field. The red field is awesome. Is that hard to look at?
It was weird. I remember when I was in like 5th grade, or it might have been like 7th grade actually. Our football team, we did little preseason jamborees, and we actually got to play on the red field, and that was just like the weirdest thing ever. Like just playing there for the first time.
It's got to be such a big.
But it was cool. It's definitely kind of weird watching it, especially on TV's a lot worse to watch it. Like not worse, but it's just like a lot weirder to follow. But in person, it's actually kind of cool. It's definitely what Eastern is kind of known for, is that red field. So
sure.
I kind of like it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a little bit of an adjustment to some of the teams that come play in Cheney. I mean, you gotta. There's only I mean, how many fields in the country are colored like that? Obviously, there's like the red field. Boise State has a blue field, which is pretty cool.
Sure.
And then other than that, there are pretty few teams that have colored fields like that, and so it's definitely different. I'm sure it's a challenge for teams that come and play in Cheney just to kind of get used to that. And I can only imagine, obviously the viewers and stuff, and it's kind of hard on the eyes watching it on TV and everything. But when you see it in person, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Let's talk about some Sooner basketball. This stretch you guys are on. You beat Texas Tech by 15 points. You had Kansas really on the ropes. And then, of course, last night, overtime against Texas at home, again, on the ropes. Coach Porter Moser said last night, nobody's quitting. Nobody's down in the dumps. You guys are trying your butts off. Everybody's miserable, but yet everybody comes to work the next day, comes to practice the next day, ready to work. Can you guys describe what that feels like, going from what I know is a locker room that's probably pretty somber to the next day in practice when everybody's attitude is back up, you're back in the groove, everybody's feeling good, and you're focused on the next opponent? How hard is that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's, sometimes it can get hard, but I really like the group of guys we have. We're pretty resilient guys, and Coach was talking about it pregame. He kind of described it that we're pretty prideful guys. Like if we lose a game, we're like that kind of hits us like in our egos, and we want to bounce back. And I kind of like that saying that Coach said, and I think it really describes us as a team. I think that like I said, we've gone a couple losing streaks this year, but none of us are down and out. I think Coach does a great job of just continuing to bring his energy, and just because we lose a game or lose a bad game or win a big game, he's he still brings the same energy no matter what, and that's one of my favorite things about him. And I think that's kind of a part of the reason why our guys are just so consistent, is because we know how to lose and we know how to win, and Coach helps a lot with that. And just speaking off the last few games, we're right there. Like I said, we beat Texas Tech, a really good team, a top 10 team at the time, and then lose to Kansas by 2, lose to Texas by 2 in overtime. We're right there. We can compete with the best teams in the country, and Kansas had one of the better crowd environments that I've ever seen, and we only lost by 2, and we were up for more of the game than they were up. And so we, like I said, we got a group of guys that are going to keep fighting, and our tournament hopes are still alive. I just looked this morning, Joe Lenardi still has us as one of the last 4 teams in, and so we're going to keep fighting. We're going to finish one of these close games out. We're going to turn it, but our guys are playing hard, and I think even though we've lost the last 2, I think we're playing better basketball than the previous weeks, where maybe we weren't working as hard, or making worse mistakes, but our mistake gaps are shrinking, and we're getting better. So I'm excited to see where this team can go in the last 5 or so conference games, and then in the tournament, anything can happen once March hits. And so I'm excited to see where this team can go, but I don't think that we're out of it.
Yeah, I think Tanner kind of said it. I mean, we're definitely shrinking the gap of mistakes that we're making. And so we've definitely had a rougher kind of past week with those close games, and those are games that just suck to lose, honestly. Like nobody in that locker room, coaches, staff, all the team, nobody likes to lose. And so obviously we take those to heart, especially in rivalry games, against Texas, in ones that you can, sneak away with like that. And so it's no one likes to lose those games. And so I think Tanner and Coach said it. We're very prideful. We want to win those games, and I think that if we continue to kind of shrink the gap and play our best basketball, which is still ahead of us for sure. If we can get playing our best basketball just at the right time, then I think we can catch fire and continue to upset some teams and win some big games like that come down to the wire. And so, we're looking forward. Our goal is just to make it to March, and anything can happen in March. And so we're keeping our hopes high, and we just gotta, kind of keep your nose to the grindstone and just get back to work. We got a huge game coming up this week at Iowa State. And so we're excited for that, and we're just gonna, keep working and look forward and hopefully get a win this weekend.
Yeah. Like Tanner said, what's crazy is obviously you guys have gone through this tough stretch. You're playing all these good teams. There's no not good teams. It seems like in the Big 12, it's kind of a testament to the strength of schedule that you are still projected to make the tournament if the season ended today. Does that make things a whole lot easier, knowing that everything is still out in front of you, obviously, in terms of all your goals are still there, in terms of making the tournament, Big 12 tournament, everything is, everything you want to accomplish is still there. Is that something that's talked about and kind of part of the helps ease the frustrations? Because obviously you've improved. I mean, that's clear. Anybody who's watching the team can see that. And then you tack on the fact that, look, we can still easily make the tournament. And then, like you guys have said, once you get in there, who knows how it'll shake out from there.
Yeah, I think that's, a big part of it. Obviously, you mentioned just the strength of schedule, and it's crazy. I mean, the Big 12, obviously, we're projected 7 bids, which is a lot. And so, as long as we can kind of make that last little range, we've been kind of just looking at seeding and stuff like that, and where we want to be, and obviously the games that we have to win coming up in order to stay there. And so, we have we have 5 conference games left, which is still quite a few. And then obviously the conference tournament, and then we get to March. And so it's like, we're still getting better and better every single game and every single day in practice. I mean, our attention to detail is still there. And I think our team who's been together now for, not even 8 months. And so, guys we're still learning how to play together. We're still, kind of figuring out, different things as we go through the game. And so I think that, just as we continue to play and continue to play better basketball down the stretch, I mean, we need to start putting games together where we're playing a full 40 minutes, and just continuing to, shrink the gap of mistakes, and just look ahead of us rather than behind us.
Yeah, just speaking off of Jake, man, we're like I said, we're right there. And in the Big 12, there's no cupcakes in this league. There's every single game is a grind. Every single game it's going to be a close game. I think, don't quote me, but I think every team in our league is at least in the top 50 for sure. There was a point where we were in the top 40, just I think in the net rankings. But I mean, yeah, this is like got to be one of the us, and you look at the Big Ten and SEC, but we're part of one of the best college basketball conferences in the nation, and so you're bound to have a tough schedule. You're bound to play some tough teams, but yeah, I mean, I think we're right there. Our goals are still accomplishable, and we can still do a lot of good things. There's still a lot of basketball games left to be played, and yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to the next game. I think that's an important thing that a lot of our teammates are good with and coaches are good with is just got to get to the next game. You can't look at the past. You can't look at what ifs. You can't can't look into the future and say, okay, we got to do this. You just got to look right at what's in front of you, and you got to look at for us it's Iowa State, and the next one is the most important one. But just looking ahead to the season, we have some very winnable games. We've got a couple more home games, and yeah, I'm just excited to see what we're able to do, with what we have left. And there's no doubt, coaches are working really hard and our guys are working hard every single day. And so I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to what we can do with the games that we have left.
Tanner, this this question's directly for you. I got to know. I mean, I'll take you back to Saturday. I was watching you work in the low post. How hard is it to hold your ground against David McCormick, man? Because when he posts up, for me, it'd be like standing in the street trying to stop traffic. He just looks so strong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that this year, in particular, I think that just coach. I really like how coach, preaches as defense, and I think for me personally in my game that I've gotten 10 times better defensively, and I think that I've been able to the last two meetings I've been able to hold my own against him a bit, and just coach has helped me a lot with that, and just post defense and all that. But no, just got to give credit to McCormick. He's one of the better forwards in our whole league, and yeah, he's an incredible player, and so it's no easy task going against him. I think he got a couple quick buckets against me right at the start of the game, and I thought I was playing pretty good defense too. It wasn't like they were just super easy buckets. He's like I said, credit to him, man. He's a tough player, and it's not an easy task going against him. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think coach has done a great job with me this year in terms of post defense. That's kind of one thing that a lot of people might have questioned coming into this year with me being maybe a little bit of an undersized center in this league, but no, I mean, coach believed in me and I believed in myself, and I've been able to do the best with what I have.
Kind of just expounding off that Kansas game, I wanted to ask you guys just about playing at the Fog for the first time. Ryan and I made the trip up there, and it was the first time I'd ever been up there, and man, that place gets so loud. It was awesome just being there. What was it like for you guys just getting the chance to play there? One of the most historic venues that the sport has. And for Tanner specifically, Kansas fans were on you a little bit. Remembering the tournament game last year, booed you in the lineups and stuff like that. Have you ever been like targeted by fans like you specifically like that ever before, or high school or whatever? Just talk about your guys' experience playing there.
Yeah, I think that out of anywhere I've ever played college basketball, that was easily the coolest, the best atmosphere of college basketball I've ever been a part of. I've seen Kansas play on TV a ton of times growing up, and I know the history that Allen Fieldhouse has, and so I was, that one was pretty exciting to go to and just see it in person, with no one there at shoot around, just looking around and seeing the venue, and then coming in the next day, and every seat in the house is full, and so it was pretty incredible. I think there was a moment, I think right before tip off, where coach is trying to draw up plays. No one in the huddle can probably hear him, and we're right next to each other. The speakers are so loud, and my ears are ringing. It was crazy, but no, it was, yeah. I mean, it was definitely a fun environment. I didn't really specifically notice. I mean, I'm sure watching the game, it was probably easier to tell, but being on the court, I didn't specifically notice fans getting on me, but I'm sure there were. I kind of love that though. I kind of thrive from that. I like it when the outsiders are talking bad about me or whatever. I think it kind of helps me play better, and I just kind of look forward to that and use that kind of as a little bit of motivation when I'm playing on the court. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think Kansas kind of has it out for me, the fans and stuff, just from the March Madness game. After the March Madness game, I was getting a lot of love from Kansas fans, but then right when I transferred to Oklahoma, jumped in the portal and came to Oklahoma, and we've played them twice, and it hasn't been the same love that I've received, playing at Eastern Washington at a mid-major, going against these guys, and giving them all we got, and now being a solid competitor against them in the same conference. So it's a little bit of a different setting, I'd say.
For me, yeah, the Fog was it was pretty crazy. I mean, just like Tanner said, we played in some of the best venues in college basketball. I mean, we were at Auburn. Obviously, we played Arkansas in a neutral site, but it was more of like a home game for them. They had so many people there. And then, just obviously playing around the Big 12, we played in some pretty awesome environments this year, but Kansas is definitely the best. I mean, a thing that stood out to me the most was just how loud their speakers were. I couldn't get over that because it was like their fans were good and they were loud, but it was like the speakers that they had on the Jumbotron were like the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. And so it was almost like it hurt your ears. And so you couldn't even it was so hard to focus and it was so hard to just pay attention to the things going on around you. And so that was by far the craziest thing for me. Just, I don't know how they do it. I mean, you gotta, I understand having loud speakers, but it was to the point where, no one can hear. And so it's obviously it's a little home court advantage for them. Their fans and the crowd and their team is used to it. And so they probably love it. But that was definitely the biggest thing for me, is just how loud it was in there.
Well, Tanner, Jacob, it's winding down, believe it or not. 5 games left on the Big 12 schedule, Saturday at Iowa State, and then hopefully, postseason is right around the corner. It's going to be a blast talking to you guys about it all in the coming weeks. I can't wait to get it going. Thanks again for jumping on with us.
Love it. Yep. Thanks for having us again, guys. Had a lot of fun and definitely looking forward to the next few weeks.
For sure. Thanks again to Trade Pros for sponsoring the Groves Bros on the SI Sooners podcast. Give those guys a call, 405-639-9991 for all your heating and air needs, or just go to TradeProsOKC.com. And be back here next week, Wednesday, as Tanner and Jacob join us for another exclusive segment of the Groves Bros. As always, you can listen to that one and all episodes of the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you've got an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. That posts at our website, allsooners.com. Click on the player and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And, of course, we simulcast the video version now over on YouTube. The channel is John Hoover Media. Please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. That stuff really helps us out. For Josh Callaway and, of course, the Groves Bros, Tanner and Jacob, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.